I'm Kimberly Chapman recording for EDU250 podcast on the current hog industry in Eastern North Carolina. I'm here with Alan Johnson. So Alan, being someone who grew up in Eastern North Carolina, how do you view the current issues facing the hog industry?
So some of the current issues include that there are lawsuit nuisances against 27 current hog farmers in Eastern North Carolina, spanning all the way from the tip of Virginia all the way down to South Carolina. These suits are also popping up in different parts of the country, such as Iowa and other parts in the Midwest with large hog production, like here in East NC. But the whole start of this is coming from a word called a nuisance. Local neighbors of hog farmers starting in Duplin County were suing hog farmers, calling the hog farms nuisances because of their smell or because of the spreading of fertilizer from lagoon hog pits. And one thing that's really important to remember is like any production animal site, there's going to be a little bit of smell, but as a person who worked with North Carolina Feed the Dialogue, which is a advocacy and literacy group that partners with Farm Bureau and helps the consumer understand what the farmers and producers are doing, but also helps the producer understand what the consumer wants. I saw a lot this summer that a lot of these cases were based more off of opinion than facts. Currently, again, there are 27 cases, and the first case was set at $437 million, and that is a really, really large suit. In the 2018 North Carolina Farm Bill, it was passed that you could not sue a hog farm that was in line with all of the quality and environmental standards, except up to a $50,000 fine. And I think that was a good piece of legislation because a big influx of why this is happening is because people have found that they can sue, and we all know we're kind of in a sue-happy society right now, and it's a great or easier way to try to make money. When we look at the suits, just personally, because of my experience, I do find them to be not fair. When courts go to, when cases go to court, it is important to remember to have a jury of your peers. Well, in my opinion, peers are people who understand both sides. Peers are people who are informed about agriculture, but are also informed about living around agriculture or who are not involved in agriculture. They need to understand both aspects. And something that we found is originally the court cases were supposed to be held at the Federal District Court in Wilmington, which was geographically a lot closer than the courts in Raleigh. But because there was a movement to the courts in Raleigh, the jury appears to say, don't live in Eastern North Carolina. They don't live in the heart of hog farming. They don't understand quite what's going on. And, you know, politics and all that good stuff aside, it's so important to go into a case knowing both sides. And it's very hard to know agriculture when less than 1.7% of all people in the United States are actually involved in agricultural production and ranching. And that's what we've really seen in this case is a lot of agricultural literacy. But focusing back on the nuisance topic, what this whole buzzword of nuisance is, they're claiming for things such as smell. In the first case, they were saying that the waste management techniques were unfair and they were doing them wrong. Well, that was proven wrong in court. It was gone back and shown that there was no way that these the waste, and when I say waste management, let me define that for you. It is where hog waste is stored in a lagoon. A lagoon is almost like a holding pond that has different substances that keep any kind of the waste from any kind of the manure from seeping into the ground because we don't want leaching of the manure. It's a self-contained pit that holds the waste until we can properly dispose of it. This is all organic matter. This is good for the soil and for a densely agriculturally populated place such as Eastern North Carolina. Farmers are able to use this, quote, waste as a natural fertilizer for the ground. So that's exactly what they do. They use it as waste management techniques. Well, in the first case, it was said that the sprayers were hitting the woman's house, but it was going back and proving that was a lie. But then there was a complaint about smell. I've lived in Eastern North Carolina all of my life. In fact, I did a count the other day. In every single direction of my house, there are 9 different hog farms. And I have never smelled hog waste, hog manure. And when I did, it was on there, but it was a controlled smell. We have to remember these are animals, just like people are animals, just like let's be honest, some people smell too. But one thing that we need to remember is actually hog farms are the #1 regulated item in the state of North Carolina. Hog farms are more regulated than nuclear power plants in North Carolina. I know that America has one of the cleanest, most safe, efficient food supplies. If you could see the deep cleaning and the bleaching that goes into cleaning these houses, it is immaculate. You could quite literally eat off the floor, and it would be a lot safer and a lot more sanitary than in most houses or public places that humans use. These houses are taken extremely good care of. The pigs are grown in they have quality feed, temperatures to their liking, clean water at all times. These pigs are basically being raised in paradise. And it's a very clean, well-managed facility, and that's every single hog house, because there can be severe fines and that companies can charge upon growers if they don't. So with all this in consideration, looking back to the original question of what are we thinking about what's going on in these hog lawsuits, is one, I think that a lot of people have seen that they think that they can make a quick dollar. But that was kind of shot down by the new North Carolina law passed by the General Assembly in June of 2018, saying that as long as the farmer is in the code of conduct and following all the regulations put forth by the company and by the state, they can't be sued. And that's fair. Fair is fair, and that's fair for both sides, because if a producer isn't following the laws, yes, that they can come along with these suits. But for these 24 suits that haven't come up yet, I think that it is fair to look into trying to get a jury of peers, people who understand both sides. And also, I think that a bigger picture of this is agricultural illiteracy, people not understanding agriculture and how agriculturalists work every day. Farmers and producers want people to have great food. They want their product to be the best, whether that's livestock or fruits, vegetables, row crops, whatever it may be. We want the best, and we grow the best, and we grow the best quality in the world. And we want people to know that, and that's what we're going to have to focus on next, is helping people understand agriculture, especially hog farming in Eastern North Carolina.
So going with the lagoon system issues, do you simply think it's a miscommunication between the farmer and the neighbor of why they don't understand how the lagoons work and why they're there and their purpose?
Oh yeah, of course. Just like relating back, like we just talked to, agricultural literacy. But of course, we have to consider this. So if you go on a hog farm, the biosecurity, which is measures to make sure that there are no diseases or viruses spread to the farm that could potentially hurt the pigs or the product after pork, there are extreme precautions. Not everyone can just roll up on a farm and go to the farm. There are actually security gates and wash in, wash out stations, which is basically where you go through and take another shower before you walk into a hog farm. And this is all preventative measures to make sure that the pigs are living in a safe environment and the products that we're growing are the best that they can be. This is needed. This is how we keep a safe food supply in America, and all the workers and all the farmers that work on these swine farms take extreme precaution. I mean, from changing clothes to taking their shower, to constantly sanitizing and making sure that they're up to sanitation par at all times. That is one aspect of it. But the lagoon portion, we have to focus in and think about what a lagoon is. So a lagoon is like a holding pond, but there's a special material put down in the bottom of the pond that makes sure that there's nothing leaching into the ground. Leaching means that a substance goes into the soil and makes its way down to a water basin. Well, that's not happening. There is a protected, there's actually multiple layers of protective layer that goes down in the bottom of this quote holding pond that makes sure no material, no organic material at all is leaking down. So basically, the hog farms, they have slates in the floor. So when the animal uses the restroom, it falls through the floor. It is washed out. That keeps the house sanitary. It keeps it clean. It's washed out, and it goes and it's pumped into this holding pond that has this protective layer on the bottom. So then after, that's a natural fertilizer. Most fertilizer compounds have some kind of manure product to it. And giving it to our soils only helps increase production of soils. And it's a healthy, great sustainable way of sustaining instead of using other kinds of fertilizers. So then after, the farmer has to pump this natural fertilizer from the lagoons onto the field. I think what a lot of people don't understand is they think, I guess people think that farmers just kind of willy-nilly pump anywhere they want to. Hog lagoons are, again, one of the most regulated things in our state. They have to write down what they're pumping, when they're pumping, what is the wind direction. Almost any inanimate thing that you can think of, farmers have to write down and keep records. And at any time during the day, the North Carolina Department of Agriculture can send an agent to come and check and make sure that you are in line with these standards and you're doing the right thing. But again, farmers want their land to be healthy. They want their community to be happy around them. Some of the most community-oriented people I've ever met are farmers, and they want their community to be happy. So they make sure that they're always in par. Hold on one second. Always in par with those standards, and they help continue to clean and keep the environment clean. The biggest misconception. These lagoon systems are a very sustainable and environmental friendly way to handle waste. Just imagine if we didn't clean out the houses. Would that be unsanitary and wrong for the pigs? Imagine if we just let it run out on the ground. Well, all that ground there'd be leaching into the soil. There'd be too many deposits of certain nutrients from these hogs. This is a sustainable way for us to make sure that the soil, the water, the quality of life for the animals, and the quality of life for people everywhere around is sustained in the correct way. It's a great, very sustainable, environmentally friendly system that we use, and it's highly regulated and always looked into. And that's one thing, again, if you don't live on a farm and you haven't lived in Eastern North Carolina, you want to know what a lagoon is. You're like, what is a what? Exactly. It's all about making sure that we can inform people, whether that's an informational video, whether that's just spiking conversation, or whether that's just local farmers talking to people around and to help them understand what a lagoon system is.
So with all these topics we've talked about today, do you think there's any way that both parties can come to an agreement or a happy medium in the end?
That's a tough question, because I personally feel that some of this is about making money. And when sometimes money's involved, people kind of lose a little bit of humanity. I think it's going to come down to understand that these systems, that farmers are good people who are trying to provide food for not only their family, but everyone around them. In fact, according to the American Farm Bureau Society, one farmer in the United States produces for about 173 people. They want to feed their 173 people, just like anyone else does. And I feel that it's going to have to be something where we practice agricultural education in general, informing the general public, and especially those people that live around those areas, because I'm the first generation that will not go into production or farming. But I completely understand how it works. We have to help our neighbors and people around understand what's going on so that they don't feel the same way. But also remember that a lot of this is, again, come up because of money. And there's only but so much we can handle when it comes to people thinking that they can make money.
All right, Alan, thank you for joining me with the podcast of Hog Industry in Eastern North Carolina.